Benefield, Gerard Bonner, and Diana Michelle.
What's going on, everybody? It is that time of the week. It's Friday. You know what that means. It's time for your favorite podcast, SHW. This is Our Wrestling. I'm B Double Brandon Benefield alongside the great GB Gerard Bonner and the beautiful Diana Michelle. And coming to you a little earlier today, you're going to get a double dose of us today. You're going to get us right now as we do a recap of Still Here 6, and we'll do a little preview of tonight's show, SHW versus TCW, Fight for the Children, huge benefit show. And then we're going to be coming to you live tonight, right back here on social media from 7 to 7:30. So big day ahead, and let's kick it off. But before we get into the what happened at SHW is Still Here, I know we've been all over the place. All three of us haven't. So it's finally we're back together to recap this show. But how's everybody doing? Let me just start there.
We're good. We're good. If this weather would just figure out where it wants to be.
No kidding.
That always gets me all up in my throat area, but we're working through it. We're doing good. We're doing good. How are you guys?
GB and I were together last night. We were doing some little some side hustling, and we were saying the same thing. It's like you wake up and it's 35 degrees, and then when I get home from work, it's 75 degrees.
Correct.
And it's messing with the vocals and the nasal and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, GB, how you doing, bud?
It's a thing. I am doing well. One of the coolest things that I don't think people realize is what we've been able to do together causes all of us to be in demand more. And when we're in demand more, we're using our gifts more. And that means we feel it more. So we're all feeling it, but we wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So it's great to be back with you guys and great to be back with the SHW faithful. A double dose of all things SHW on the podcast happening today.
Absolutely. Well, let's just jump right into it. No need to wait. Still Here 6. It was massive. We knew going into it was going to be massive. Our anniversary shows are always spectacular, and this was no different. It promised to be a stacked card, a massive card, and it sure was. And we actually kicked things off with the SHW tag team titles. It was a triple threat championship matchup. You had the infantry, the hierarchy, and the grapplers. The grapplers coming in, defending those titles. We talked about it on the pre-show, and GB, you mentioned it on commentary. A lot of people not very happy with the grapplers' title reign because there weren't very many title defenses. And it was, I think a lot of people were looking for that to change going into Still Here 6. And, they got what they wanted. So how do we feel about this match? First of all, Diana, I know you had some thoughts.
Man, I mean, nothing against the grapplers, okay? I mean, they're great, whatever. They're fine. They're good. They're whatever. But honestly, not our champions. Not our champions. Even when they were our champions, it just, where were they? Where was the presence? Where was, the oomph? There was no oomph. And I really didn't think we'd ever get started with this match. There was something stopping it. Either Kenway getting beat up and whatever in the back, whoever gets that.
GB, I'll let you get to that in a second because you can kind of touch on what happened there. But Diana, you're right. It took you, 3 or 4 attempts just to do the ring intros.
Nobody had any question that Sean Dean was there because they heard it 3 times. 3 times. Which is great because I love Sean Dean.
Yeah.
Cap, don't cap.
Oh boy. That's probably a great place to enter this segue and say Diana was on 103 on this show. And here's the cool thing. This is we'll go behind the velvet rope for a second. People think we just do this, right? But I think there are moments in the show where we each know that we're really on or if we're really off. And I think certainly by the time we hit match 1, we all knew Diana was on, way on. And she didn't let us down throughout the whole show. If you don't believe me, go back on IWTV. You can see Diana being Diana.
Feisty.
And
feisty is the word.
Feisty. She warned us in the pre-show.
I did.
But I don't think we understood the full levels to this feistiness.
It started earlier in the day.
Apparently.
Yeah.
And it never left. It never left.
But
it added to, the oomph of all things,
Thank
still
you.
here 6. And so, yeah, so it was crazy. I mean, you had what was scheduled to be the hierarchy, that being the Kenway and Murder One. But then we find out on the screen as Murder One comes out by himself that the Kenway has been beaten up in some undisclosed location. We don't know where. And then Joe Black, who is scheduled to have the match of his life, he's put his career on the line against Judas, comes out in place of the Kenway and chooses to fight twice in one night. And that got crazy because then during the match, Judas shows up, choke slams Joe Black from behind through a table, creates all sorts of havoc. At the end of the day, hashtag and new Southern Honor Tag Team Champions, the Infantry, as Carly Bravo, of course, cashed in his Rumble Jack victory to go after the tag team titles, and it proved to be a successful cash in. And so Carly Bravo wins his first championship inside of Southern Honor. And then, the Infantry, they win their official first tag team championships. Just a major night, and what a way to kick off Still Here 6.
Absolutely. And of course, the Infantry will be defending those tag titles tonight at the combined show, SHW versus TCW. We'll touch on that towards the end of this episode. But, a couple of small little details that you catch upon second viewing, especially if you go back and watch it on IWTV. If you'll notice, we were kind of confused leading into the match and going into the beginning of the match. Who did that to Kenway? Why, who obviously he was laid out backstage. There was a ladder on top of him. He was bloodied. During the match, at one point, you had Xander Seabold had a glove on. Somehow or another, Murder One got the glove off, and there was blood all over his wrist tape, all over his hand. And I think that might have been Kenway's blood. And then also, Murder One seemed to think that as well, because immediately he fired up and went in on Seabold. So we don't know for sure, but I mean that all signs are pointing to that's what happened there, and we'll see where that leads down the road in the world of Southern Honor. But like you said,
wow,
and new, it was the Infantry's night. But what was weird, DB, is as much as we wanted to relish that moment, we also had to acknowledge and see what was going on with Joe Black. Joe Black being put through that table by his opponent later in the night, Judas. And, like Murder One's tending to him. The officials are checking on him. We're concerned. What does that mean for the main event? And, it was a lot going on there at the end of that matchup. But
so was this maybe a plan with the end game and the grapplers all along? Are they working together, or is this just a coincidence?
I think it was a coincidence. I think it was, but I don't know. I mean, could be. We never know. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. We always end up with more questions than answers.
That's right.
Sure.
In fact, we would think that it's still here. Maybe all of our answers would finally be answered, and all of our questions would finally be answered. And instead, such as this next matchup, where we think a big feud is going to come to a head and come to an end, I think it's just another chapter, and that being Gary Lamb and Zach Mosley. Here we are thinking they're finally going to have this big match. It's going to blow off this feud that's been going on for 3 years at this point. And then the way it ended, well, we heard what happened. We set up a match for November for SHW 68 coming up November 8th. So Gary Lamb gets in this matchup. We talked about it going into it. He gets kind of talked into it. They needled him and needled him and needled him on the Exotic Truth podcast. And he finally accepted the challenge. It was going to be one-on-one. And I'll be honest, GB, you asked me on commentary, do I think it will indeed be one-on-one? And I said, I'll believe it when I see it. Shockingly, neither Pepper Bottom or Bryce Cannon were there, at least at that time during the match.
Correct.
We would see Pepper Bottom a little later in the show. But he stuck to his word. It was a one-on-one match. Gary, though, ends up losing his cool, stealing my chair that I'm calling commentary from, and clocking Zach Mosley in the head with it, busting him open, and gets disqualified. Of all things for this match, Gary gets disqualified. And what were your thoughts? I mean, it got right out there in front of us, GB. They were right up next to the table. So what were your thoughts overall?
Yeah, it was rather close for comfort. And as you're describing that, it reminded me that, again, we talked about the fact that Gary Lamb is not a trained wrestler. And so I know I thought about that from a combat perspective, but that also holds true from the rules, right? Like he doesn't know what the rules of a wrestling match are. And so he's a guy, you put him in a corner, he's going to come back swinging, and it doesn't matter how. And in this case, he grabbed the first thing that he saw, which was a steel chair. He wasn't thinking about getting the win, winning by DQ. He didn't think about any of that. He just thought about getting revenge because, quite frankly, he was getting it handed to him, you know? And so it doesn't look like this is anywhere near over. And if I'm Gary Lamb, I've got to start getting concerned because a wrestling match, a regulation wrestling match, is not in his favor. A singles match is not in his favor. And even though we're moving potentially to a tag team match, I'm not sure how much in his favor that will be since tag teams are fully in the wheelhouse of Exotic Youth.
Yeah, it was like, I mentioned Pepper Bottom showing up later in the show. So let's just go ahead and touch on that. Pepper Bottom shows up. He apparently wasn't even there earlier in the night. He said he was at his niece's quinceanera. And then he got a text or saw the video on the phone of Zach getting hit with the chair, decided to show up, call out Gary Lamb. Gary comes back to the ring. And it turns out now we're going to have a Canton street fight at SHW 68 in November. And it's going to be Gary Lamb and Gunnar Miller versus Pepper Bottom and Mosley. So just when you think this is all going to come to a head and be done, this is just another chapter here, like you said on commentary, GB. So that's going to be insane. And how's Gunnar going to be faring after that, taking that brick to the head at the previous show? Will he finally be cleared to wrestle? So we'll see. Diana, what did you think?
Well, I feel like I understand Gary's position. He got fed up. He got emotional. I too, when I get emotional, I don't care about rules. You know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, you get what you get.
I enjoyed it. I'll be honest.
It was great.
I loved it. Now, I didn't like that he got disqualified, but I understood why. But would I have been any different?
I don't think an outcome like a L or a W was really on his mind. He just wanted to get a piece of Zach Mosley. I mean, it's been building for years now. I mean, not even talking about hitting you with the car, but just the constant nagging at Gary from way back when they were putting flyers up in action buildings.
And you and GB, all of us.
I mean, it's been a thing. So I mean, I get it. And I'm with Gary. I didn't really care that he lost. I was loving that he slapped him in the head with a chair. I mean, that was cool to me. I mean, let's do it again. Let's do street fights. So, I mean, and with Gunnar coming back, I mean, first of all, you don't hit a man like that in the back of the head with a brick and not expect some kind of repercussion, because that's going to be it's going to be ugly. So, I mean, this might be the end of all ends.
Yeah. Well, and this time it's no DQ. So anything goes, weapons are legal. I mean, it's a Canton street fight. So I'm excited. I can't wait to see the brutality that comes from Gunnar Miller and Gary Lamb against Exotic Youth. And we'll see, but that's a few weeks out. That's in November. But let's move on down the card here. CT Keys and Nick Halen. And we were actually joined, GB, by the leader or the mouthpiece, whatever you want to call him, of the end game. Todd Sexton joined us in the booth.
Yes, indeed, he did. It was a surprise, and, you know, we all managed to keep our decorum. But it was also interesting watching in the moment how unsure and divided his loyalties were. And that was a big question for me. Who would he side with in this match? Did he feel like, you know, the end game would be able to stay together after this? And all of his theories were severely tested in this match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys, Todd came out there thinking, all right, they just want to see who the better man is. I'm hoping nobody really gets injured and they don't really go all out. And GB, you were questioning throughout the match. Well, what about this? What about this? It looks like they're, laying it in there. And Todd was, you're right, progressively getting more and more nervous as he kept getting up from the booth and going to talk to the different competitors. But what a wild match that was.
I enjoyed this match.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy this match. It was great. And I'll give it to Nick Halen, the co-wrestler of the year for year before last. And okay, he's a good wrestler. He is. He didn't back down from CT Keys. CT Keys brought it. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a brawl. I mean, to me, you would have never known they were in a faction together.
Right.
The way they just, brought it
Yeah.
to each other. And I don't know, I didn't really know how this was going to end up. But listening back on IWTV, hearing Todd with his excuses on why this is going on or why this has happened, I don't know that he's convinced exactly that they're just still really brothers at arms or whatever. I think there's something more to this.
Yeah.
And now that there's no titles in the end game, what we got, what we're working with,
Yeah.
what
we
we
go?
protecting. Yeah. Who
Yeah.
are we protecting now? So
Yeah.
let's see.
We've said before in the past, GB, like when brother tag teams or, when they fight, it's always like when brothers fight or when close friends fight, they always lay it in harder than they do
Mhm.
against any other opponents. And these
Mhm.
guys coming from the end game, being co-faction members, whatever you want to call them, that was the case. It was like two brothers just laying it all out there. And
Yeah.
it's the anniversary show. So, they're going to go big or go home. And man, what a hard hitting affair this was.
Not to mention it was the number one contender match for the JTS
It
legacy
certainly
title.
was. It certainly was. And of course, CT Keys ended up winning that match and becoming the new number one contender for the JTS Legacy Championship. We'll talk about that match here in just 1 second. But I do have to tip my cap and give a little bit of props to Todd Sexton here because here's the deal. Nick Haaland of the end game always gives us grief, always gets our names wrong, always gives me a hard time backstage. Judas, the priest of punishment. We know not to look him in the eye. He's the most terrifying person I've ever met, and he comes out to the ring and always glares at us and, tries to put people through our table. CT, I got to be honest, I've never had much interaction with. Luckily, I don't want to mess with that guy.
Mm-mm.
But I just want to say Todd Sexton was very cordial with us at the announce table, was complimentary of us and thanked us for allowing him to join us. And I got to be honest, I was a little taken aback, GB. How about you?
Yeah, I was taken aback as well, and part of me thinks that he may have been feeling empathetic because of the concern he had for his two endgame members in the ring,
Yeah.
who seemed to be fighting a lot harder than he intended. He thought this was just going to be a quick little scrap. They'll work out their frustrations, and they'll be good to go. Well, clearly the blows that they were laying in messed with him a lot. And I think in there, he didn't have time to mess with us. He decided to be kind to us. He was willing to answer our questions. So for that, Mr. Sexton, we appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then after the match was over, he said, well, now I got to get in the ring. I got a few things I want to get off my chest. But before that, he made CT and Nick Haaland shake hands. And they were very reluctant. They ended up shaking hands eventually. And then he said, we'll deal with this in the back. So who knows where it went from there?
Right.
Time will tell. Maybe we'll find out in November. But what was the craziest thing of the night, and it threw everybody for a loop, was what he told us next, which was due to all the crazy weather and travel issues, the cage being delivered from Florida was unable to make it for our big main event cage match between Judas and Joe Black. And then, and I'll be honest, he did make a bit of a valid point here, even though I'll just say he said, what gives Joe the right to make the stipulation for this title match when they're when Judas is the champion? I can't really argue that. And so what ended up happening was they turned it into Judas's specialty. And if you remember from a year ago, where he successfully defended that title against David Ali in a casket match. And so our main event turned into a casket match. Now, Joe's going into the night almost like the cage match is like Joe's specialty, and then it turns into Judas's specialty. So everybody got a little nervous there in the middle of the show thinking, now, wait a second, our whole main event just got changed here. But we'll touch on that here in a little bit. Let's move on down the card. We talked about CT Keys becoming the new number one contender for the Jake the Snake Legacy Championship. The next matchup was for the Jake the Snake Legacy Championship. Hunter James defending against Kyle Matthews in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Of course, Hunter James being accompanied by the guiding light, Tristan Michaels, who would try to come into play and affect this matchup. But in the end, Kyle Matthews finally gets singles gold here in Southern Honor. He had a brief taste of it back at the Rumble Jack, but this time it was official. There was no controversy, no shenanigans. And man, what a moment it was. Kyle Matthews celebrating his first singles title in SHW.
Diana, I know you were itching.
Chomping at the bit.
Please.
You were so excited. We were all excited.
So excited. This made my entire night to see Kyle walk away from this match with this title, knowing that Chip did this title so well. Yeah. And to have Kyle come back and take it from Hunter James and Tristan freaking Michaels. It was sweet. It was so sweet. Tristan just walked off crying, and I don't know if anybody saw that, but I did, and it just made my whole night. It was just wonderful. I enjoyed saying and knew JTS. Oh, it was just awesome. That I can just stop right there. It was great. I'm relishing in that still. I've watched it back a few times. It's been great.
Yeah, it was a great, great moment for Kyle Matthews, who is so deserving of singles gold. Again, he probably should have left the Rumble Jack as the champion, but at this moment, it's undisputed. There's no controversy about it at all. 2 out of 3 falls. Kyle Matthews. And again, what a wrestler to carry the legacy of that Jake the Snake championship. Again, Chip Day, the inaugural champion, did an amazing job with that championship. I think it's only a posit that his longtime tag team partner now holds that title, and I'm intrigued to see how Kyle Matthews will add to the legacy of that championship.
Absolutely. What a night it was for Kyle Matthews. And from one big singles victory to another big singles victory, we had the legendary Sal Rinauro, I believe 26-year vet. Is that right, GB? That
is correct.
Taking on none other than the Golden Globe and Emmy Award-winning Paul Walter Hauser. And what a match this was. And don't worry, I made the edit. Nobody knows.
You got it, right?
What edit?
Yeah. Anyways, the Golden Globe and Emmy Award-winning Paul Walter Hauser. And but what a match this was. It was his first singles matchup in SHW for PWH. Of course, we saw him several months ago in that War Chamber match where he was the honorary member of the hierarchy and helped them defeat the Endgame that night in the War Chamber. But this night, it was a solo match, and man, it started out with Sal just being crazy as always. He comes out walking around. He's wearing a Cobra Kai. I don't know what they call it in martial arts. The uniform, the outfit. But forgive me, I'm not a martial artist, but I don't know what they call it. But anyways, he's wearing the belt up on his head. He's walking around acting kind of weird, and I didn't know what to make of that because I'm like, dude, you have a match. Like, get ready for your match. What are you doing? But Paul Walter Hauser, man, we talked about it on commentary, and we said it in the weeks leading up to this. He takes this seriously. He's not just some Hollywood actor coming in here just to have a one-off and try to get in the limelight and, act like he can get in the ring and do what these professional wrestlers do. He's put in the work. He's trained with Darian Bankston, who we know very well. And, I mean, it showed. He proved it the other night. It showed, and he got a huge win over Sal Rinauro. And on the flip side, Sal Rinauro's losing streak in 2024 continues. And it's been, a year at this point, I believe,
just
right?
Just about a year. Yeah, it's an insane number for Sal Rinauro. And, I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things to really try to make sense of is how Sal Rinauro is in this space where he is a 26-year veteran. He has done all of these things in the sport, but can't get a win. Like that's the crazy part to me is he has not won a match literally all calendar year. And it's kind of frightening to me, actually, because I don't know where he goes from here. As of that night, it was 343 days. We are inching ever closer to a calendar year, almost 365 days without a win. Think of your favorite football team, your favorite baseball team, when they go on, your basketball team, when they go on losing streaks. When that losing streak gets to be too long, it almost becomes impossible to break it. And you have to figure out, what do I have to do to break this? So you hope you go against, teams that aren't as who have not had a winning season, who have had difficult times, and you can't beat them. You go against new teams. And so in the case of Sal, he's gone against veterans, he's gone against newcomers, he's gone against rookies. Now he went against Paul Walter Hauser, who, while he's been undefeated in mostly non-traditional wrestling matches.
Mhm.
Hardcore matches, the War Chamber. But in a straight-up wrestling match, you would figure Sal Rinauro would have the advantage and would easily win. So I don't know what's next for Sal. He lost recently against Aaron Dallas. He lost against Buchanan.
Yeah.
Like, he's been losing against these relative rookies. So what do you do now? And that to me is the big question. How does Sal break this now year-long losing streak? And it's coming up on a year. It'll likely be at a year by the time we get to SHW 68.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens at this point. I don't.
Well, and it all kind of started, we talked about this the other night. It all kind of started when we saw the seeming breakup of Happy Madness.
Mhm.
Now, coincidentally, we saw the other member show up later in the night, and we'll get to that match here in just a few. But yeah, I don't know, GB. You talked about you've lost so much, you almost forget what you're supposed to be doing. And you said it the other night, I believe it was maybe he hit a diamond cutter on Paul Walter Hauser or something.
Mhm,
And then he just sat there and clapped his hands, and we're like, he's forgetting to make the pin.
Right.
Like, that's
right,
the most important part of the match. You got to
right,
pin him to win the match. And it was like he just
right.
wasn't putting that together. And
Wow.
who
I
knows?
think towards the end, though, as he was making his way out of the arena, that he was realizing, I just lost again.
Mm-hmm.
Just the look on his face, and it was like he was counting how many times he had lost in the last year. And what do you do? I don't know. This is Sal. I've seen many sides of Sal over the last 6-7 years that I've been around, and maybe he steps away, maybe he reinvents what he does, maybe he starts back over and gets back with his basics and just brings back what he does best, which is just wrestle.
Yeah.
And I mean, this isn't the end. I do believe he's got the sun coming up sometime soon, but right now he's just in the slump, and I don't know how he digs out. I really don't.
And I don't know if we see him at SHW 68. I mean, I don't know if we'll see him tonight at the Fight for the Children show. So we'll see. But who knows what's next for Sal Rinauro, and who knows what's next for Paul Walter Hauser,
Right.
when he might pop back up in SHW. So time will tell. But what happened next? And actually, let me just preface this by saying there were a lot of very huge moments that took place at Still Here 6. A lot of very loud moments when the crowd just exploded. And one of those, near the very top, I won't say it's the top moment, although it could be argued. This next matchup, what happened at the end of this next matchup? Lev survived the faithful gauntlet. Okay, he took on the gauntlet. I'm sorry, yes, Fluff. Oh man, I screwed it up. Fluff survived. And the other night I kept saying it wrong. I was calling Fluff Faith and Faithful and Flufful and all this stuff. It was a mouthful. There are a lot of guys in the ring, right?
That's what he could be. He could be Flufful now.
He's Flufful. There you go. I like it.
That's perfect.
Run with it. But yeah, so Fluff survived Lev's faithful gauntlet. Say that 10 times fast. I'm just kidding.
Right.
Don't try. It's a mouthful. So what was interesting here is right at the beginning of this matchup, we were informed that the Warden, due to some travel issues, unable to make it to the show. Now, of course, there's faithful followers all over, apparently, because we get this guy in here, Joey Hyder, who comes in and takes the place of the Warden. I got to be honest, I wasn't familiar. I had not seen this guy in action before, and man, did he impress me. Fluff, the much larger opponent, and Hyder was in there just throwing him around. I mean, what a physique and what strength from this guy. However, not quite enough. Fluff was able to handle him, handle Grayson Pierce, make his way to Lev, and you guys take it from there, man. What a matchup this was. The crowd was eating it up.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the pop that we get when Fluff comes through the curtain is crazy. I mean, it is right up there with All-Star Special, and that's saying a lot. We got to see the steamroller a few times, which was amazing because that's my favorite thing ever when Fluff comes out.
He walked right into it. My favorite part was he entered the ring and then boom, he caught him.
Boom.
I loved
Done.
it.
It was like, don't you know you don't walk in front of a steamroller because you will get rolled? I mean, how many times did you sing it, GB? And at least
Several
twice.
times. Several
It was
times.
great. And then to finally get Lev in there and break his little fateful heart it was great. I don't know what we're going to do. How we're going to announce him now? I don't even know.
Well, he said he's
can't be faithful
lost.
anymore.
He's
He's
lost.
lost. So is he the lost soul? I don't know. I have to get with him on that. But yes, the Fluffman cometh.
Indeed. And a huge victory. You know, I wondered if Fluffman would have the endurance to make it through all three members of the faithful. With Warden being out, one could argue that maybe it got easier, but Joey Heidel, a problem.
Hyder. Yeah.
Hyder, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say a different kind of problem than the Warden. And but somehow, some way, Fluffman made it through. And so finally, Fluffman can call an end to this year-long war with Lev and his faithful. And now you wonder, okay, where can Fluffman set his sights now? Will he perhaps connect back with Sean Legacy and get back on track for the tag team championships? Will he perhaps have eyes on a championship that he got an opportunity at, the Jake the Snake Legacy title? Or will he even put his eyes towards the SHW championship? Is championship gold perhaps finally in the future, or at least on the radar, for the Fluff Man? We'll find out, but congratulations to him.
Yeah, big night for Fluff.
Yes.
And as we mentioned, Lev, he ends the segment after the match, and he says, we thought he was going to say it again, and we're like, well, he's not allowed to say it anymore. He better not say it. And then he ends up saying, and I'm lost. Okay, well, then we find out, and again, we'll touch on this upcoming show, which is happening tonight at the Action Building. Don't miss it. Come join us. But he's going to be having a match tonight against the Warden, because we found out he kind of blames the Warden missing the show on the fact that that's why Fluff was able to defeat the Gauntlet. So we'll see how that goes. We know Grayson Pierce is also on the show tonight. He has a singles match. So the faithful, or the former faithful, as now I'll call them, will all be in action later tonight. But moving on down this card, another huge match, a massive match, both figuratively and literally. And as excited as I was for this match, it was what happened before these guys entered that kind of bummed me out and put a sour taste in my mouth. We get the music of Matt Griffin coming out to the ring, and I'm thinking, well, the Action All-Stars and the SHW Originals, that match is coming up later. Why is this guy out here now? Well, as an IWTV representative, he decided to come out and sit ringside and join us on commentary to call this matchup. But of course, the matchup I'm talking about, the IWTV Independent Wrestling World Championship, with Cruel, the Atrocity Cruel, defending against Big Trouble Ben Bishop. This match had everybody salivating for the last several weeks. They were all looking forward to this. I mean, Big Ben, he's known across the independent world. Everybody knows who this guy is. And of course, everybody knows who Cruel is, being the IWTV World Champ. And it was just a matter of time. We saw a brief taste of these guys at the Rumble Jack, and now we got to see them in one-on-one action. And it was a colossal fight. It was a clash of titans. It was nuts. But it was what happened towards the end of the match that really surprised everybody, GB.
Yeah, it really did. You know, herein again, it looked like, once again, Griffin got one over on us. The referee gets knocked out. He throws the belt in. It looks like we're going to have a thing. And then we hear music we haven't heard in quite some time, and we see a figure we haven't seen in quite some time. Brooklyn is back. But the question is, who would she side with? Because the last time we saw her, she seemed to be in the pocket of Team Action and Team IWTV, trying to take down all things Team Cruel. But apparently time brings about a change. And as they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And apparently things got very fond, to the point where Brooklyn remembered who she was and whose she was, belonging to Cruel, and ensuring that Cruel would get the victory and retain the IWTV World Championship.
One of my favorite visuals of the whole night, and Diana, you probably back me up on this, was Brooklyn slapping the absolute taste out of Matt Griffin's mouth.
And the glasses flying
Yes.
off.
Oh, it's great.
It was nice. Yeah, me and Brooklyn hadn't always seen eye to eye when it comes to Southern Honor business, but I got her back on this one for sure. She can do that again. She can come on back and do that again and again and again because he deserves it.
Absolutely.
He deserves it.
Absolutely.
And he got his little dessert later on that night, but it was yes.
I was gonna say he got his comeuppance in more ways than one, and we'll get there in a minute. But anyways, it ended up Big Trouble Ben Bishop took the largest, and dare I say the largest we might ever see, scorched earth from Cruel, and Cruel retained that IWTV World Title. So what a massive match that was, and Cruel walks out of Still Here 6, still your IWTV World Champion. But
let me just say how much of an honor it is to do that, to call a World Championship match once again. I mean, I love being able to do that. I love how it feels to do something like that, and that's a big deal.
And we don't take it for granted, the fact that we get to have these IWTV World Championship matches in our building on our shows. Started with AC Mack a couple of years ago, and we've had a handful of them with Cruel as the IWTV World Champ. So it's been very special for all of us to be able to call these world title matches on the SHW shows for sure.
Yeah, these are the moments that, again, sometimes I think people think for us it's old hat, right? But it's never old to us, you know? I mean, when you think about when you get in the business, you dream about moments where you get to call championship matches, call world title matches, experience title changes. And so in the varying ways that we operate, to get the opportunity to call the match, to announce it from start to finish, it's something special, and we get to share that. And those are great moments for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, while Griffin was out there, that kind of segued right into that matchup we were talking about, the Action All-Stars against the SHW Originals. And of course, we knew who the Action team was made up of, and we only knew 2 of the members of the SHW team. And the question going into the night was, who's the third man? Who's it going to be? And, I kind of hinted at it earlier when we were talking about Sour and Aro, but GB, I'll let you take it from here. It was a shocker for everybody.
Yeah, it was a shocker. We were sitting here trying to figure out who indeed is the third man. And as we went through guessing about all of the SHW originals who could fit the bill, we forgot about the ultimate SHW original, that being Sunny Days. And Sunny Days showed up. And it's interesting when your third man is really a monster.
Yeah.
Very intriguing. Plus, Sunny Days kind of has the opportunity to right a wrong. If you'll remember, it was Sunny Days ultimately losing a couple of years ago, which cost him control of the company, allowed the company to go through some very dark periods with dishonor. And the company could go through another dark period if Team Action was able to get the win. Sunny Days, though, was there to help make sure that that didn't happen. But not all was well on the Team Action front. And I'll just say this. I'm very glad I don't work for Matt Griffin, because if he doesn't like something you do, he'll fire you and then think he can do the job better himself. So he fires Kevin Ryan from his team, decides he's going to jump in for Team Action, and that didn't bode well for Team Action at all.
What a terrible idea. But he's
out
out there.
What happens when you drink on the job?
I was going to say, he had his flask out, he had the flask going, and he was not thinking clearly, apparently. But here's one thing I do want to mention, because going into this, we were all, the fans especially, and I know I was vocal about it, all very disappointed in Kevin Ryan. Kevin Ryan, the inaugural Southern Honor champion, October 5th, 2018. He won it at our very first show and carried it for a number of months. And for him to be swayed monetarily, to be bribed basically by Matt Griffin to join Team Action over SHW, shocked a lot of us, disappointed a lot of us. But I feel like even if he wasn't going to be fired during the match, he came to his senses. And I feel like he came to his senses ahead of time because he had his SHW shirt on under the Action shirt that he wore to the ring. So something tells me, whether Matt Griffin was going to fire him during the match or not, something was going to happen where Kevin Ryan was going to show his true colors and side with Team SHW, which is what ended up happening by the end of the night. And Diana, this is what you touched on a second ago, because after the match was over and Team SHW was standing tall, there was one man who was squashed like a bug laying in the middle of the ring, and that man was
Matt Griffin.
Oh, what a sight it was.
I wish I would have thought to just maybe pin him myself after all that, because that would have been great.
You were kicking him out of the ring.
I mean, he's laying in the ground, like, just, I don't know if he was feeling it or not. I don't know. Maybe
If
he
you
didn't
would
have
have
enough in his flask. I don't know.
If you would have pinned him while he was just laying there, we would have all, the crowd would have lost it.
Yeah.
Oh,
they
well,
would've.
I
We would've
serenaded
lost it.
him right out the door as he went. But either way, it was a
Mhm.
great moment, and it was definitely another highlight of the night. We had a lot, but that was definitely another highlight for me
Yeah.
of the night. He is so rude to me. He is so rude to me.
You're not
So,
the only
yeah.
one. He called us Gerald and Brennan when he sat down
Well,
in the
at least you
commentary
have
booth.
regular names. I'm just Mike Stan.
Well, that's true. I
Mm.
can't. It irritates me when he does. I mean, I know it irritates you, but I just, it irks me.
It's okay. I enjoyed rolling him out with my feet. That was great.
So maybe this is the end of the Matt Griffin saga.
We can only hope.
Hey, fingers
We
crossed.
can only hope.
Well, on top of that, okay, we had a huge night. We've had numerous title changes already, a huge match after huge match. And now the icing on the cake, the main event, the huge Southern Honor Championship match, title versus career. We thought it was going to be a cage match, as Joe Black had put out there. Instead, it gets changed into Judias's favor by Todd Sexton and gets turned into a casket match. It's and earlier the show before, Joe Black had put his career on the line, saying if he cannot beat Judias, he would retire from pro wrestling. Shocked a lot of us, made a lot of us a little nervous. You get a little nervous when somebody throws that stipulation around, and but hey, it all worked out for the best, at least in our eyes, because man, what a moment it was. I talked about the big moment when Fluff won, the big moment when the infantry won, when Kyle won. But man, this moment here to end the night at SHW Still Here 6, whoo, it might be, you know what? I'll go ahead and say it. The biggest moment in Southern Honor history, ending the reign of the longest reigning champion, Judias, Joe Black, your new SHW champ. How we feeling, y'all? How we feeling?
I feel like a lot of wrongs have been righted.
Yes.
Just came full circle. Everything is whole. Everything is great. Everything is black. Joe Black. He is our champion. And I couldn't be happier. We can't have a better one. I'm telling you. It's long overdue. And for him to come out on top, especially in a casket match against Judias, and to have for Judias to show him the respect after the match was that was mind blowing all by itself. But yes, I cannot be happier. Joe Black.
Yeah, it was very, very special. Joe Black has meant so much to this company and to the independent wrestling world. And, given all that had happened that night alone, from him trying to, be brave and fill in for the hierarchy in the tag title match, to being choke slammed through a table, to having the cage match that he thought would keep him safe changed to a casket match. It did not look like it was going to fare well for Joe Black. But as we always say, you always bet on Black. And Joe Black went in, dug deep, found the killer weight, found the guy who we call our Undertaker, found the guy who we call the Promo King, and realized what he had to do that no one else could do in 518 days. And that is end the reign of Judias and get his rightful place as the SHW champion. This is one of the most, and I would say, I'll agree with you, the most significant moment in the history of this company, because if Joe Black doesn't win the SHW championship, who stops the reign of Judias? But there is no replacement for Joe Black.
No.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody else in our business, but there is no Joe Black the second. There is no second coming of the killer weight. It is him or nothing at all. And so I am really, really glad that Joe Black gets to be our champion while he is healthy, while he is whole, while he is ready to still do damage. And I always wondered what SHW would have been like 4 years ago when he became champion initially. A lot has happened in the world and in our company in 4 years. If anything, Joe Black is smarter, he is wiser, he is better, and I think he gets to lead Southern Honor into the next and arguably our greatest chapter as the new Southern Honor champion.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. We start up year 7, and we started tonight, actually, because this is Fight for the Children. Coming up, it's SHW versus TCW, a.k.a. SHW 67. And, of course, we mentioned 68 coming up November 8th. So all these shows kind of back to back to back almost. And, man, it's got us pumped up. Now, we will give you a quick rundown here of the match card. And then later tonight, join us live tonight at 7, from 7 to 7:30. We'll do a little more in-depth pre-show, get a little more in-depth in this match card. But let's just run down the card real quick. I mentioned the former faithful, Grayson Pierce, SHW's own, will be taking on TCW's Very Morales. Now, Very Morales has ventured into Southern Honor a time or two before, and we all know how special he is. So that should be an exciting matchup. We've got the ones I mentioned earlier, Alexander Lev blaming the Warden for losing the gauntlet match because the Warden didn't show up. It's still here. And GB, you and I were at the relaunch episode of Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, which the Warden was on, and where he won the Nightmare Factory Championship. Correct. So here we've got another TCW versus SHW's Alexander Lev. It's going to be a night full of back and forth, SHW versus TCW. It's going to be exciting. We've got Hunter James facing TCW's everybody's big Brady Booker. Okay.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
That dude is hype. If you've never seen him before, now, Diana, you and I, all of us, we've been, for some of you, let me just pull the curtain back real quick. For some of you that don't realize, we are also the announce team for Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. I realize this is the SHW podcast, and we rarely, if ever, talk about other promotions. But in this case, since both companies are part of this show tonight, I'll just let you guys know. TCW, ever since that show, when was it, GB? Like January or February?
Back in February, yes.
So it's February. And ever since then, we've been on a TCW relaunch tour, and we've been going all over Georgia. And so Brady Booker, Diana, you and I have had plenty of funny interactions with him.
He is great.
He's a character for sure, and he's so hype, and just so he'll get you excited. If you're not excited, you'll be excited after watching his match. This one, we've got a bunch of title matches on this card as well, and a bunch of first title defenses for the new champions coming out is still here. One of those being Kyle Matthews making his first ever JTS Legacy title defense against QT Marshall. Okay, the man that runs TCW, AEW star, Ring of Honor star, QT Marshall coming in here, trying to add that Jake the Snake Legacy title to his resume. And there's a lot of people out there saying this could be a dream match for fans of technical wrestling, right?
Right.
And it very well will be and should be, and I can't wait for it. It's going to be a good one. Speaking of title matches, the Infantry, I touched on it earlier, defending the SHW tag titles for the first time, and they'll be taking on TCW's Jack Jameson and Jimmy Wild. So that's an interesting combo right there, because these are two guys that don't normally team together, but very prevalent guys in the world of TCW. Of course, Jack Jameson, we know very well from other spaces. You've seen him on ROH as well. But man, that's going to be a good one. Now, Joe Black, we just touched on him. One of the biggest wins, the biggest win of his career, winning the Southern Honor title from the Priest of Punishment Judas at Still Here 6. Will be making his very first title defense against the Ukrainian-born thriller Elijah Drago here tonight at Fight for the Children. That's going to be an insane match. Now, Drago is a powerhouse in TCW. So if you haven't seen this guy, he tends to get in the ring and he yells at the crowd in Ukrainian, and you know, he's very angry. We don't know what he's saying, but he seems very angry, and the crowd doesn't like it. He doesn't like the crowd, but I know the crowd loves Joe Black. He could be
complimenting the crowd for all we know. I have no idea.
You know what? He could be. I never thought of it like that. He could just have one of those faces where you don't know he looks angry, but that's just how he looks. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble. I won't say too much more. I feel like
No.
I'm gonna step in it here. But Drago and Joe Black. Joe Black's gonna have his work cut out for him. Not gonna be an easy first title defense, that's for sure. And then in the big main event, as if SHW and TCW weren't enough, hey, let's throw in the DWA Ultra Violent Championship that is held currently by WWE and ECW legend Rhino, the War Machine. He'll be defending against SHW's own, the Killbilly Nathan Mowry, in an Extreme Rules match in the main event tonight. That is going to be absolutely insane.
Mhm.
That's DW what?
DWA Ultra Violent Championship.
Ultra violence.
Yeah, not
Violent.
ultraviolet, violent.
Violent. Violent. I got my Killbilly shirt on.
There you go.
Ready.
Repping the Killbilly. So it's
Ready.
gonna be wild. It's gonna be a wild night. Fans, come on out and join us. 261 Marietta Road, Canton, Georgia, at the Action Building. Tickets go on sale at the door starting at 5 p.m. Doors open at 7. Bell time at 8. Kids 10 and under are free. This is a benefit show, but kids 10 and under still are going to be free. And just so you know, it's benefiting the Cherokee Shrine Club and the Shriners Hospitals for Children.
Yes.
All proceeds are going to the Children's Hospital there. So, going to be an amazing night. Go ahead, GB.
I'll just mention this one thing just to add to why you want to show up to this show tonight. Rhino, tomorrow night, will be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So what a way to lead into that by taking on the Killbilly and defending this championship. So he'll either go in as champion or the Killbilly could beat a TNA Hall of Famer.
Wow.
All of that's going down again. Joins the Hall of Fame tomorrow night, but tonight he's with us in Canton in what should be a barn burner of a match.
Wow.
Literally.
It's gonna be just a massive show, and it's so cool that our worlds are colliding here. It's, I never thought we'd see something like this. And you know, the fact that it's a charity show as well is very, very cool. And so we hope that you guys can come out. Well, I know we say it for every show, but this one holds a special place for sure because it's benefit. All proceeds, like I said, go to the Shriners Children's Hospital. So very important night, and hope that you can all make it. Invite all your friends, all your family. And I know there's high school football, there's all kinds of other stuff going on, but come on out and join us. It's going to be a great family event. Bring the whole crew. And like I said, tickets start at $15, and they're available starting at 5 p.m. tonight. And then doors open at 7. And also at 7 o'clock, we'll be joining you for the Fight for the Children pre-show live from the Action Building. And it's going to be awesome, man. You're getting double dose of us today here for the SHW podcast. So you're welcome.
You know you love it. You know
Absolutely.
You can't get enough.
Well, guys, anything else for the fans before we sign off here?
No, man, I've got to get my stuff together so I can get on the road. So
Yep.
We'll see y'all soon.
Yes, and thank you all for 6 great years of Southern Honor, and we're excited about year 7.
Absolutely. We will see you guys tonight. Join us live, 7 o'clock. But until then, this has been
SHW.
And this is our wrestling.